Hey there guys, PC Guy here with the news in tech and gaming for the week, and we do have a few topics to go over this week, starting with AMD's earnings calls for Q4, which has been, well, it has came out just earlier this week, and we have some interesting details in both how they did in this past 3 months with their numbers and their sales, which is quite interesting with the Zen 3 and the Radeon models that have came out over the last year, as well as the Epic stuff, but as well as some insight into the big Navi launches for the year 2020. Seems that in Q4 they had a revenue of 2.3 billion, which is about 50% more than they had on Q4 last year, so that's quite amazing. But surprisingly, it was not as good as they were expecting, considering their dominance in the CPU market, so their stock price went down in any way. In any case, they seem to be growing in every sector. You can read this particular article in full detail on VentureBeat if you are interested in all the numbers and details, but they seem to be growing between 3 to 5% in every segment. The one segment that seems to be doing a bit worse, and well, that is kind of expected that it will be doing worse, is the console segment, which, well, PS4 and the Xbox are on their way out. New generation is going to be coming out next year, so we'll hopefully over the course of this year we'll be seeing some changes in the numbers regarding the new consoles that are both going to be AMD powered, so that's definitely going to bring those numbers up a bit. They will be launched at the end of the year, however, obviously AMD sells its chips a little bit in advance for them to actually be put into the consoles, so you'll probably be seeing numbers related to that on Q3 next year. Something also quite interesting coming out of that earnings call was a speech that they gave to the investors, specifically related to RDNA and their GPU lineup. So what they say is that in 2019 we launched a new architecture in GPUs. It's the RDNA architecture, and that was the Navi-based products, and that we should expect those to be refreshed in 2020, and as well as a next generation RDNA architecture as part of the 2020 lineup. Now this was mostly already known, really. We kind of already were expecting Big Navi to come out in 2020. However, the refreshed thing there seems to be rubbing some people the wrong way, as in kind of like they did beforehand with the Polaris. With, for example, 480 resulting in the 580, that was basically the same with barely any improvements or increases at all. So that's what people are kind of afraid of. However, I don't think that will be the case. I think that by refreshes they do mean new products in the lineup and not so much refreshing existing products into, well, basically unchanged versions. Now, as for the RDNA 2 Big Navi that we're all expecting, yeah, no further indications other than it could be expected this year. Now, will we expect a launch this year, or can we expect an announcement this year for it to be launched, for example, start of next? No idea, no mentions of that. We'll just have to keep waiting. Next story is a cautionary tale on the use of free software, because very few things are actually free, and in this case Avast. Avast has been an antivirus that has been used for many years by many people, and it was one of those free ones, and I have never used it, at least not in many years from now, because, well, it was just not good enough for what I was looking. But apparently now they have been caught with their pants down after reportedly selling user data that was supposedly anonymized to a multitude of companies, from, like, for example, Google, Microsoft, Pepsi, Home Depot. That is just amongst a few. So yeah, if you are into using antiviruses, or not only antivirus but free software, usually is not always completely free. Just because they are not getting money from you does not mean they are not making money off of you. And in this day and age where your privacy and things like your browser history that can be used to, for example, target you with more specific ads, all that sort of thing, that seems to be taken a lot more seriously these days than it was in the past. And yeah, things like this are also a bit more impactful when they are found out. So yeah, my recommendation, don't touch anything that Avast has out there, not even with a 10-foot pole. And yeah, if you are using it, I would always get rid of it and look for another alternative. And yeah, because even though they say they will not be doing that anymore, and they are not doing that anymore, they say then, yeah, you know, once you get burned, it's difficult to go back to them, especially when there are alternatives out there. PNY has revealed the passively cooled Quadro RTX 8000 and RTX 6000 GPUs. These are extreme high-end cards. They're not for your average gamer, mind you. And they are completely passively cooled. There's a spec list down below, which will just let you see how actually impressive that is. And yeah, they are also not the cheapest. Being RTX cards, they are obviously capable of Raytracing, and there's a whole lot of specs which I'll not be going over because this card is not really aimed at my audience, to be honest. I just thought it was interesting. They are in the $5,500 and $4,000 range, which is definitely way more professional use. I just thought it was quite interesting that they are entirely passively cooled despite having 295 watt TDP. So yeah, considering fans are usually the noisiest part of a PC, specifically the graphics cards fans, it would be nice to have some more passive cooling on our everyday cards. However, that will just propel the costs higher, as we can see right here. Speaking of cooler fans and cooling in graphics cards, Asus has revisited their solution for cooling on the RX 5700 TUF Gaming X3 OC. I want to get a bigger name there or something, hopefully not. In any case, those cards were heavily criticized at launch for having very poor cooling capabilities. As the article in Quadro suggests, they were running, for example, 10 degrees hotter than the reference card, which is a blower card, mind you. Now, there were some specific issues that were found with these cards, like for example, the VRAM was not being cooled properly, and it was relying on just airflow to cool it in opposition of having a heatsink and airflow. This also had some issues with, for example, the mounting pressure with the cooling against the chip and the components, so heat was not being transferred properly. In any case, they have put out a revisited solution, a new model, for the same price as the original was out there for. And while this is obviously great, it does leave a few questions in the air, like what happens to the people that already bought the worst version? Do they get a refund? Can they trade it in for the new and improved cooler card? That would be the ideal thing. Will that be what happens? Yeah, who knows. In any case, it is positive in a way that a company is listening to concerns and fixing the issues and putting an improved product out there. That's definitely commendable. However, it does leave all the questions for the people that already have one. It's also kind of makes it even worse that it is an Asus card, because Asus is one of the more expensive brands out there. They usually command a bit of a premium, especially on their Gaming X3 OC with all the lights and bling. So yeah, when you get a product that's even worse than the reference card from a premium seller, then it makes it a little bit worse. So I do hope that it provides support to the people that already bought the worst cards. Warcraft Reforge is being review tanked, and for good reason. Well, I usually don't condone of review bombing products just for the sake of it. In this case, people are actually mostly right about what they're complaining. Warcraft Reforge is a Blizzard game which, as we have talked about in the past 2 months, they are not really doing great this last year in terms of the message they put out there, their behavior and actions, as well as the games themselves are suffering a little bit. In any case, Warcraft Reforged is supposed to be a remastered version of the classic Warcraft 3 from several years back, the strategy RTS game, and well, it was advertised already several months ago, and it was already on pre-order, and it turns out that the final product that was delivered was a little bit shy of the expectations and the things that they had promised in several fronts. Right now on Metacritic, they have a user score of 0.5 out of 10, which is quite impressive considering the number of ratings that they have. The critic score is 63, which, while you would say, yeah, 63 is not horrible, consider that the Warcraft 3 version from decades ago had a 90-something critic score. So yeah, there's that. As for the actual reasons for people being so unhappy with it and why the review bombing is taking place, well, there's multiple. First of all, crashes, bugs, FPS drops, unplayable FPS drops and freezes. All those things are happening in the game, even though it should be, well, playable at the very least. We all know the Blizzard's launches aren't the smoothest, but that shouldn't happen. Other things include broken promises like missing features, things like cinematics that were shown on the promotional trailer and that were supposed to be in game not being there, or being there at much lower resolution, or just being replaced by just in-game scenes as opposed to actual cinematics, which shouldn't matter, but it doesn't matter from a gameplay point of view, but it does matter as in that this is advertised as being a remastered version. The objective of that is improved graphics, a bit more up to date with the times, some quality of life changes perhaps, but mostly for the visual looks being improved and kind of refreshed for a new generation of PC hardware. So yeah, that much has failed, but there are also other concerns, more to the modding community. The custom games in Warcraft 3 were a very strong feature. They spawned things like a lot of tower defense games that I actually played that a lot with my friends, which were pretty great. We had a lot of fun on those custom games. There was some crazy stuff out there, and they did put in some limitations there. This is aimed mostly at Dota, which Defense of the Ancients. It started off as a Warcraft 3 custom map, and then it grew out to be taken from Blizzard because it was not owned by Blizzard. So Dota 2 was born, and Blizzard lost a lot of money there. So now they have changed their terms of agreement to anything that you create as a custom map with the Warcraft 3 engine is automatically and 100% owned by Blizzard, and they don't have to pay you anything for it if they ever decide to build a game out of it. So that seems aimed at preventing something like that from happening again. On the other hand, if you put a lot of work and time and resources into building an amazing map, means it can just get stolen from under your feet, just like that, with no compensation or explanation. So that kind of axes a lot of the modding and tweaking community in the game, which, let's face it, when you are creating a custom map, you are not thinking, at least not at the start, that you're going to make a fortune out of it, but it is the thought that the company Blizzard is just standing there, lurking behind the curtain, waiting to just snipe it from under your feet and just take your work and your dedication and all the time that you put into it and just profit off of you without even a thank you. Then yeah, you can see how this feeling is not great. They also updated it so that you cannot use characters from other franchises, well, obviously because of copyright issues, which apparently were not an issue 20 years ago, but are an issue now. So that much at least I can slightly understand, but yeah, it does take a bit of the magic of the custom games away from them. First of all, not only they applied these changes to the Reforge, they also went back and changed the EULA for the old Warcraft 3. So there as well, these rules are now in effect, and they basically changed them 20 years later to match the ones from Reforge that they are launching now. So once again, just in general, not the best of moves by Blizzard. They have not had a great year with the whole Blitzchung thing, and then the whole charity thing, and the whole firing 800 people, and the 8.3 patch for WoW is also a hot mess, which I still have to make a video for. In any case, good job, Blizzard. You did it again. It takes most of the big stuff of the week out of the way, so now it's time for, well, just a little tidbits of little snippets of information that I thought were interesting. Intel reports that Unity engine now has support for real-time ray tracing, so yeah, you can expect, it's already been seen over the past few months that the amount of games with ray tracing is increasing. There is more and more talk of RT being used in gaming in the future, and well, it seems that even though we might hate the price of RTX graphics cards right now, in the future we can expect our cards to have ray tracing, and hopefully the the look of games will also improve along with that, and their price will hopefully decrease and be available in the mid and budget ranges as well. Also, with a crazy rise in RGB everywhere, meet the RGB dice. Now, RGB dice are a bit over the top. I wonder if you can sync them with Aura and IQ and stuff like that. But in any case, they seem to be aimed at mostly D&D players and tabletop gamers in general. They are wirelessly charged in a custom case, and they can be customized as far as the lighting goes. Their producer seems to claim that they are mostly balanced. They're almost balanced die, so probably not 100%, because all the electronics in there, it's going to possibly make one side more heavy than the other, but they claim that they are acceptably balanced. In any case, they seem to cost between $25 and $30 per die, so if you're going to go for a full set of dies, that's going to be quite an expensive D&D session right there. Well, this has been the bulk of the weekly news. Hope you guys have enjoyed catching up with what has happened in the past 7 days in the tech and gaming world. If you did, consider dropping a like and a comment telling me what you think of the news and what you think of the video itself and what could be improved. I am especially interested in the sound quality. I have moved my mic to a shock mount here at the side as opposed to on the desk to try to reduce vibrations from the fans, etc. So hopefully that helps. And that helps clean up the sound a little bit more than it already was with the better mic that I have now. So hopefully that was fine. If you would like to see more tech content and a bit more hands-on with the hardware and all that sort of thing, consider subscribing, helping us grow. That would allow us to get possibly brand support and all that sort of thing, and at least it would also make me happy and a bit more encouraged to see more people watching the videos and following the channel, so I would really appreciate that. Hope I'll see you guys in the next video. In the meantime, have fun.